The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Meshroom VR, the simplest way to product validation in VR. Discover the incredible added value offered by Meshroom Studio VR to visualize, discuss, and validate all your 3D projects with all team members in an accessible, immersive environment. Simple and powerful, with Meshroom Studio, you can easily visualize your 3D objects files from your CAD software, and you can do that in VR at scale 1. This new affordable VR software is changing the game for your prototyping process. You can optimize and accelerate your product conception process. And today's webinar presenter, Antoine Doumenc, is the co-founder of Meshroom VR. He has an engineering background and is a recurring entrepreneur, and he has held several management positions at Nokia in Helsinki, San Francisco, and Paris. With a strong experience in the video games industry and go-to-market strategy, is passionate about digitalization and new technologies. Is the one in charge of worldwide business development at Meshroom VR. Now let me tell you a little bit about Novedge. Novedge is one of the largest online stores for design software. We offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's needs. Come visit Novedge. We're novedge.com, and this is the VR product page where you can find this incredible software right now. And for more daily software news and limited time promotions, you can find us on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, the usual suspect. Coming up next week, ArredoCAD Designer, a 3D design software for interior design, finally. Last but not least, today's webinar is free and is being recorded live. And if you want to rewatch it, you can go to our Novedge YouTube channels, where all our other webinars from past and future will be stored. And now let me share Antoine's screen so he can show you exactly what we're talking about. Okay, a beautiful day at sea. We're seeing your screen now, Antoine?
Yeah, is that okay? Can you see full screen?
Perfect.
And you hear me well?
Yes.
Good. Excellent. Thank you so much, Barbara. And I want to thank Novedge for welcoming us. Meshroom VR, we are really excited to present this product, and I hope this webinar will give you some insights about what VR really brings to the table. And as we will see, I like the title of this webinar, which is the fastest way to product validation, because what we are always asking ourselves as Meshroom VR is, what if the virtual reality had become affordable and easy? And I will spend the next 45 minutes in going through different points. I will start with a few slides just to give a perspective on why is Meshroom VR very different from what is existing on the market today. It's really a very different approach. And then I will dive into a presentation, a demo of Meshroom Studio, which is our first released product, and to give you an overview of what it does, and then dive into really deep dive into some of its functionalities and how maybe they can be used for different use cases. And we'll finish with a Q&A. I think we'll leave about 15 minutes at the end of this presentation to just make sure that we answer all your questions. Basically, Meshroom VR is addressing the way to present and validate your 3D projects. The problem when you are showing 3D project is that we are not all equal in front of CAD software, screens, plans, and things like that. Some people are very professional, they're very used to it, they can immediately project themselves and imagine how the project will look like in real size. Actually, it's not even true, because there are some studies that says that nobody can really imagine how a product will be at scale 1 if you don't see it in front of you. So there's always a difference in perception of how you think it will be and how it will be. So the problem is, if you want to have a real discussion, you need to materialize it. So there's a lot of ways to prototype, to do this by prototyping at scale 1. And in fact, normally in the different processes to bring a product to the market, there will be so many steps for validation, and just steps during the design, the conception phase, validation together with the product team, validations with management, validations with the product management, with the product marketing, and so on, and of course the customer. And for that, there will be different types of prototype that will happen all along the way, more and more realistic and more expensive to do. So prototyping in general is very useful, but it's costly in terms of money. And even more, it's time consuming, because when you make a prototype, it's actually a true decision. It's a decision to say, hey, I'm concepting, I'm stopping, and then I decide to make a prototype. And then I will probably get the prototype the next day, the next few hours if it's 3D printed, or the next week, or whatever. So that's the reality of creating product. To this, there is a well-known solution, actually. It's virtual reality. And why am I saying that it's a well-known solution? Because virtual reality has been around for 15, 20 years already. We have very large companies who have been putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into very advanced systems 20 years ago. Plane manufacturers, car manufacturers, they are very heavy systems. And why did they put so much money? Because they know that the value of it is extremely high. Prototyping a plane would be absolutely out of reach even for themselves. So having very expensive systems, there was already a return on investment for them to be able to visualize them at scale 1 before they are existing. What happened is that in the last few years, the cost of those systems went dramatically down, went from sub-million to several tens of Ks, and now you can buy in the US an HTC Vive for $499. So it means that the hardware has now become extremely affordable for very high quality definition, and this is actually running on PCs, so really affordable for many teams today. So the value of VR for product validation has been known for years. What's completely changing is that it's becoming affordable. 2 years ago, Meshroom VR founder, Antoine Doumenc, he is actually a product designer, and he put his head in one of these helmets, and at the time he was actually designing a project, a small car, electric car for a customer. And he realized that it would be fantastic. It would be absolutely fantastic to put your head in such a helmet and be able to visualize at scale 1 again in a realistic manner his project. He tried, and what he noticed is that there was actually no software available, no solutions that were accessible to him as a product designer in a small team, and all the solutions available on the market were just very complicated. So the problem is, how do we get this real value of VR in the hand of more people? And that's how we created Meshroom, from actually our own needs. Meshroom VR is a VR validation software, allowing everyone, and this is what I will try to convince you during this webinar, to validate 3D objects together at scale 1. I'm just going to say a few words about the product. The product is actually extremely simple to use. I would say there's 3 major steps in it. You import your files, you can edit them, and you can present them to tell your story. This product is actually aimed to make your life extremely easy, because product validation is not a question for specialists of VR. It's actually a question for designers, product managers, product marketing people, and they are not people who will spend all their day learning a very complex software. What they need to know is how to have an easy to learn, very powerful solution, and know how to use it immediately in a very efficient manner. So what we have been focusing on in releasing this product is a very simple import file process. We support most of the CAD mesh files that comes from almost all the CAD software on the market. We have done some features that actually automatically correct common mistakes that are made during imports, so that it makes it very simple and no need to ask to the specialist to redo it. Anybody can do it himself. Editing, very simple and intuitive, as you will see. The idea here is that starting from the CAD software mesh file, you will be able to enhance it, texture it, and make it look hyper-realistic in a very fast manner. And of course, the whole idea about this is to present this object to your audience. The audience being either yourself as a designer and a conceptor, because you need to validate some of the aspects of your design at scale 1. It could be people of your team, in the design team. It could be people in the management, presenting object to the product management, or even further in the development, getting feedback from the product marketing or even the customers. And the idea here is to be able to bring your 3D project in a relevant environment that you can customize easily and on your own with autonomy. So this is where it starts to be very different from any other solution that you will find on the market. A lot of VR solutions are actually coming from the world of engineering, because this is where VR has been for the last 15 years, addressing very specific needs for very technical teams. The whole idea about new VR generation tools is actually to be able to get the 3D data outside of the only hand of the engineering team, but to have this data spreading across the organization and being usable by other parts of the organization. And that's really the true challenge about digitalization. It's to get the data outside of specialist teams so that it then can be shared between designers team, engineers, product managers, and marketing team. So a lot of our customers are actually industrial designers, naval architects, interior designer, where they can validate their volumes and present their proposal to their customer. Then it's very easy because the customer doesn't have to read a plan, doesn't have to understand a schematic. He is actually in the project or around the project, and everybody is equal at that point to have a fruitful discussion. It's also very useful for product managers who can then just receive the 3D files from the other people in the organization and use it autonomously to be presenting to their different people they talk to in their organization, and that can go all the way down to the marketing teams. Actually, Meshroom VR is can be used in very different types of use cases. So I just started to list it here to give you some ideas. It's actually currently used by very professional product design studios to make product design validation among themselves and to present it to their customers to get their feedback. It's also used for industrial machine design, customization. What I mean here is that a lot of projects for industrial design are related to machines, and those machines are a little bit always the same, but they're always customized for a specific customer in order to check that this or this piece is going to the right place and suits the customer need. So validation around those specificities can be done in VR in a very simple way. It's used also for space validation for all the industrial, so first interior design. That's very useful for any interior design project, but also for industrial sites. We have a lot of our customers who use this to understand where to place the machines in a new industry, in a new site, design the workspace for the different users, and get the actual person who's going to use this workspace to give his feedback before it is built. It's also used for focus groups, presentation, to get the opinion between A and B types of products, and it can of course be used in trade shows and commercial presentation. We have a lot of our customers who are just taking the system with them to any trade shows. It's transportable, it's easy to install, and instead of bringing their whole portfolio of heavy machines or products, they bring a few of them, because people always like to touch what they see, what they will buy, to understand the quality, but the rest of the portfolio can be fully visualized in VR. So that's to give you a little bit of a glimpse of what Meshroom VR is supposed to be used for. I just wanted to give you a small idea of what we're talking about in here. When you're doing a product, and this is more focusing on the prototyping side of things more than on the marketing validation, but if you think about it, when you design a product, first you will do some drawings, and then you will go through a volume and ergonomics validation phase here. For that, you will use small models, depending on your project. That's going to cost you between 500, and for a very large project, the sky is the limit. It's going to take time to do. But through that, you will be able to validate volumes, forms, shapes, and so on. Then you will have a formal validation, and there you can use rapid prototyping. Or if we talk about people who are doing space validation in a new factory, for instance, then they will actually install boxes and pieces to understand how people will circulate, and this takes a lot of time. So in fact, the prototyping cost per project goes growing extremely fast, and the time for it grows very fast too. With Meshroom VR, we're not saying you're not going to do prototyping anymore. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that a lot of things that you had to do through prototyping before, you'll be able to do them in 5 minutes, in 5 minutes, and then basically just with the cost of the software usage. And every project is basically free, because you can do as many projects as you can. So just to summarize what I tried to do, our mission is to make VR prototyping and VR validation to everybody in the industry. You are a small team, you are in a small and medium-sized company, or you are in a very large company, but in a team that works on projects that cannot justify a very heavy VR investment. Meshroom is the tool made for you. So Meshroom, and what I will try to show you now, is that try to convince you that it's simple, intuitive, powerful, and cost efficient. I have a couple of videos, because I don't know if the web platform we are using is going to be very smooth. So there's these 2 video addresses that maybe I'll leave you a little bit of time to note while we are talking, while I'm presenting, because from there you will actually see some of the example that I will use in my presentation later at real speed. And that, I think, will help you very much to understand the powerfulness of Meshroom VR. All right. So let me jump in, actually, the actual demo of Meshroom VR. So Meshroom VR here on my screen is this little logo here. So I'm just going to get it started. And as you will see, so this is running on a PC with a GeForce card here, and the idea, everything you will see here is actually real time. So I have not prepared anything, especially for this presentation. The software is very fast to load. It runs on your PC, and this first part of the software is actually running on any PC. The software is very simple. The interface is only 3 parts at the beginning. You can create a new project. You can load an object that you have already prepared, or you have the recent projects here that you can fast access. So I'm just going to do a very fast, or actually the fastest way of using Meshroom. Let's say that you received a 3D CAD from a CAD software designer, whatever it is. We're supporting many different types of mesh paths. We're, for instance, here supporting FBX, OBJ, STL, DA, which is also called Collada, 3D XML, and there are actually a few missing from the list, such as 3ds files. So the first thing is that I'm going to create a new project. And for instance, I'm going to take a file that I have prepared here on the side, and I'm just going to drag and drop here this file. This file, just to get you an idea, is 1.1 million triangle. What just happened in 3 seconds is the import of a actually very significant file. 1.1 million triangle is already something very interesting, and that's already done. Why we have spent so much time in developing this part is because we understand that the idea is that you're going to go back and forth to your CAD software if you are in the design phase. And this step to be extremely fast is very, very important. So this is really something that is astonishing, and I will show you some larger file performances. So what I get here is actually a first screen. And we're going to go through 3 what we call correction screens. The first one being that as a designer, you've been rotating your file in many different directions on your CAD file. But since we're supposed to see it at scale 1, it's better to have it in the right side. So basically here, I will be able to rotate it. And also the other part, which is interesting here, is that we have automatic corrections for some of the defects that may happen in some files where you have some problem with the surface or things like this. So we're making your life extremely easy. The next button is next. And here we notice that in 8 times out of 10, when you're importing a file from your CAD file, actually the parameter to set the export unit is lost or is buried somewhere. So we made, again, your life extremely simple here to say, hey, what is the correct unit that I'm going to look my object at? So for instance, here it's a car, and this one is actually a small European car, and I think the correct unit is centimeter. So it's a 1.5 meter high part. And basically here, I could go straight to VR. So now, just with this, anybody in your company, no need to be an expert. You have your file, drag and drop, click, 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 and you can go straight to VR. We have actually done multiple rooms that are available to you. They are standard rooms, such as Studio Light. A studio that is a little bit more interesting, I'll show you this one during the presentation. For naval architects, we have done a dynamic sea, and we also have created a warehouse, and we're adding new showrooms as we speak. What I will also take you through is the HDR custom environment, where you can create your own room on your own extremely fast and give the right context to your story so that it supports your message. But basically what I'm saying is that just in a few clicks, I'm able to go here and here, select a room, and go to VR. I'm not going to spend much time in VR, but what you see now is actually what I see in my helmet at scale 1, and what you see is what everybody in the audience could actually visualize on the screen. So I'm just going to exit this, as I'll come back to this step a little bit later. So the idea is really 3 steps, extremely fast, extremely easy, go to VR and make scale 1 validation. What's interesting also is that before going to VR, what we noticed is the idea is all the, as you have seen, when I imported the file, it came with the textures of my file. For instance, this one is a file that came with some of the textures applied. In fact, these textures here that comes with the FBX files, for instance, they are not made for VR. They are textures that have been made for the CAD software. And the idea is to propose to you a full material editor in which you will be able to do a presentation that really suits VR needs. So for instance, here, the way it works is that I can actually see all my information here, my object, and then with the different balls here, I can select the different parts of my object. For instance, here I can have the black parts here of my car. And for instance, I'm going to put a little bit of carbon on them. All right, so now I have added the carbon part. What I can also do is change the car paint of this, which is a little bit white at the moment. And in here, for instance, I'm going to change this to something a little bit more interesting. As you can see here, everything is real-time computed, and hopefully the speed of the connection gives you an idea of the smoothness of the different elements. So I have added this, and for instance here, what I'm going to do is to show you a little bit further, because here, as you see, this is not only materials, this is really not only textures, it's real material that we are building here and adding. And for instance, on this reflector, I'm going to add a little bit of paint. But here, I'm going to add actually a scratch paint. So, oops, maybe this one is a little bit better. Up here, yeah. So this scratch paint here is actually quite interesting, because what we're going to see is that, up, I put it like this. No, actually, sorry, it's the other one. It's this one. Up. Here, I have added actually the scratch paint on top of the roof here. And what is interesting here is that if I double click this element, actually you can see that this is a material that contains a color map, a reflection map, and a bumps map. So you will be able to create your own material from scratch and edit them as you wish. So I'll just give you an example. Let me want, for instance, I would like to create a wood material. So I'll actually do a new material. I'll go to the color map. Whoops. And then I will actually probably, let me open this, for instance. Where do I have it? Up here. I'm going to go where is it? Here, I'm just going to do this, for instance, textures, up, and I'm going to drag and drop a texture. For instance, let's do an American walnut. So I'll drag and drop it here in my editor. I will have now, for instance, as you see, all the reflections. But what I can do very easily is to auto-generate the texture for the reflection, and I can play on the different reflection of my material to make it more or less shiny. And then I can auto-generate also the bump map on it, which is now a little bit too right. Maybe up. I will go here and then reduce a little bit the contrasts and a little bit the brightness here. Exactly. So now I have actually done a shiny wood in which I can also change the color mix to give different color tints to it, and basically select what I'm going to have as a material. I can, of course, change the roughness here. And then what's interesting is that if I click on this unified texture here, I can modify the different parts of my wood by making the scale of it a little bit differently. I can also rotate it, and I can move it to have it in a different position, and we'll see how to use that a little bit later. So now I have unified it. I'm going to save the material, and I'm going to call it Wood 6. I can put it in the different parts of the editor, and now I have actually done it. So my wood is actually here. If I take it and I put it here, I have my wood on my roof. But if I double click on it, actually I can see live the different parts of the wood scale that I'm going to have. So I can adapt it exactly to the element that I'm going to do. So actually this one was done a little bit too fast. So what I'm going to do is to take the wood, for instance here, made from the library, and for instance apply this one. And now here you have actually a real nice texture of a wood applied on my rooftop. All right. So the idea here is to be able to make your design in a very fast manner by anybody who actually can learn this in a few minutes and be able to create materials at their needs. What we have also done is to be able to, for instance, add lights. So here we have this material here, but I'm going to add a light to it. Up. So I'll take the light material, sorry, apply it here, and now I have a little shiny light LED that is appearing. I can change its brightness, and of course I can change its color. All right, so this is going to be very interesting for especially people who want to do interior design or concept stores, because you have lots of lights and LEDs that can be added to the object. So here, what I just did is to show you the powerfulness of the Meshroom VR material editor specially designed for VR. So let's say that I'm good. I updated the material. I have done my car. And then I'm going to do next step. So here, as I said, I have multiple showrooms. And I'm going to jump right into the VR experience. So now I'm putting my helmet on. And what you will see here is actually a little bit of the version of what I see. Oops, sorry. And basically here, as you see, I am standing in a studio room. And I can see my car at scale 1. What is absolutely stunning is that I will be able to see all the possible defects that there could be on this design. I can see the lights, the LEDs, and you can see the quality of the material that we have been applying. So for anybody who is in product design, you have here a very fast, very easy, 3 clicks way to bring your CAD files, already textures from your CAD software, bring it to VR by adding some custom-made materials. Once we are here, we have a few very useful tools that can be used. So on my handle here, I have this blue button on top of it, which I'm going to press, and I'm going to access the panel. The panel is very interesting because it has 2 functions when you are in VR. The first one is what we call the elevator, and the elevator is what's going to allow you to have any possible viewpoint in VR. This is actually a system that we have selected because it gives you all the possibilities to see your object from any direction, from any point of view. Seeing at scale 1 a car from the first level of an apartment, for instance, of a building, is something that is very difficult to realize. This elevator is a little bit more sophisticated in that sense that it allows you to know at which height you're being at the moment, but it also allows you to save the different altitudes and thus to come back to the right altitude very fast and continue to navigate. It's very useful when you're making presentations, because if you're the designer, the person you're showing the project to is actually wearing the helmet, and you're going to be able from the PC to make this person go to level 1, level 2, or level 3. Extremely useful for different types of presentations. We will see its usage in a few other use cases later. The other access tools that you have is actually within VR editing table. So in fact, selecting this tool is bringing you into this environment in which you have a small version of your object. The table here can be turned, and we see the different balls here that are matching the material that have been put on this car. Here, for instance, I will see that this is the wooden part that I have done before. But for instance, if I wanted to make the top of my car like aluminum, I could actually be doing it this way. I can also take this element and put it on the material table. That will enable me to actually see, depending on the material I'm putting here, changing the color of it, changing, for instance, for this one, the brightness. But for instance, if I would take this element here, I have now the metal specificities of it, and of course the brightness and the color. So for instance, I can take it back and put it back on my table. That allows me to actually do very fast change, where I can put my custom material. Here is a small library, and I can of course go back by pressing the blue button and go back to the scale 1 environment. This will be very helpful when you want to do fast editing, A/B testing of different types of version of your product. So we have actually used here a car for this, putting the helmet on the table. And I'm going to exit the VR environment. I just wanted to use this opportunity to show you a few other types of use cases that can be considered. Here we are really typically in a design of a car. We could naturally have completely different types of objects. For instance, we have a lot of our customers that are into boat design, naval architects. And here, as you see, the loading time here is also extremely fast. I just took a file that has been saved before, and I'm going to take it to our C environment. Unfortunately, I understand that the speed of the connection here is not going to allow you to see completely the dynamic environment. But basically here we are on an island, on a place where you can put any object, and we are going to actually walk on the water and go to the imported object that we have done. So here, imagine the difficulty to actually prototype such an object. It's actually a 30-meter long boat. And here we see the other advantage of this elevator, as we are going to be able to navigate not only on the boat and see all the different elements, but also to go inside the cabin and be at the place of the pilot. And here I insist everything is scale 1, and it will allow me to validate the different perspectives and see if the different elements are at the right place. For instance, if I go in the back seat, which is here, I will be able to see what I see as a co-pilot, and if my communication module is at the right place, and if when I put my arm, I can actually access the different commands here or here. So we can do basic ergonomics and shape validation, as well as what can be seen from a specific point of view. This is the level of realism you can get, just a few clicks by adding some textures. Okay. Again, putting the helmet on the table. So that gives you an idea of the level of realism that we can achieve by using Meshroom in a few clicks. Other types of use cases are actually, here I have been using very large files or very large objects, but I'm actually going to show you what you can do with smaller objects when you are designing whatever types of products. Could it be tables, furnitures, coffee machines. Here we have actually an interesting small engine that I'm going to show you in what we so-called HDR environment. So the HDR environment is an environment where you can customize entirely the environment in which you're going to tell the story. So in here, for instance, you just have to find an HDR or an EXR image from the internet, a 360 image with this extension. There are hundreds of thousands on the internet, or you can actually make your own by taking a 360 picture in an HDR mode. And you can just drag and drop your image to this point here. So for instance, here, I'm going to open one HDR file that we have, for instance, this one. And here we're going to be in a room. And this is not actually a 3D room. This is just a picture, a 360 picture in HDR mode. And here is my small engine that I have put. As you can see, this looks extremely realistic. I can handle it. I can put it in the air. I can put it back on the table. I can walk around it. I can go down. And this is all the gesture that a normal person to validate design would do in order to validate that the design is correct. I'm just going to take a few seconds to discuss about the HDR mode that we are talking about. So if I press here the blue button again, as I am in an HDR room, I have an additional panel, which is this one, that I'm going to click, and it gives me access to this kind of table. The first thing that I can do is actually to select the room scale. So here I have a room which is about 2 or 3 kilometers long, I would say 2 miles long, and I can go down to a few inches. Here I am in a big hangar. Having a tree about this size here would not be completely crazy. Then I have another handle here that will help me to align the picture because I don't know at which altitude this picture was taken, so that I can minimize the distortion. And this is actually pretty good. Now I feel that I am in a flat room. I will be able to rotate the room so that when I enter, I am in the right direction. Of course, change the exposure, change the gamma, and the reflection brightness that you can see in the bowl in front of me. I can also have this light panel in which I can select the sun position with the shadows, the sun color, the sun power, and the shadow colors that will match. Imagine that I'm having a picture that is at sunset. Having a too bright sun would not match what I am looking at. All right, so actually here, maybe I'll put a little bit of a blue color because I have some blue lights coming. And with this, I can actually change my room to match my needs. Actually, we can see here that there is a little bit too much brightness coming from the side. So this will help you to customize your environment in an extremely fast manner and completely autonomously to present your project to whoever needs to see it, so you can have the design validation. All right, I'm just going to go outside. Of course, I did not mention it, but when leaving the editor and leaving the VR, you can save this object as a MRO file and send it to anybody who will be able to open it with Meshroom. I think I have a few minutes more to show you a couple of other things. Just another use case, which is very much used by industrial designers, people who are presenting large objects, for instance, such as this one. Where is it? Here. Very interesting when you are making projects of large structures. Large structures that basically even prototyping would be something extremely costly. And just to let you know, here we're loading a 6.5 million triangle file, and it takes about 30 seconds to load. And now, because it's loading all the details, it's going to take a few seconds to load in. I need to put my my helmet on the table. Yeah. So here we have actually a structure. It's to actually give you an idea of the smoothness of the system. So even with multiple millions of triangles, we're able to actually navigate in a very smooth manner any parts and see any types of details of the structure. And now we are actually at the top of the machine and going back at the bottom. So here you can imagine that showing your project at scale 1 in a few clicks in VR becomes very easy. All right. Okay, so basically this is more or less what I wanted to show you as part of the what Meshroom VR can do. As I said, this is running on a PC, a normal PC with a graphic card that supports VR, and we can give you all the specificities. It's actually available at Novedge, and there is a version, a trial version that can be downloaded that gives you access to a 15 days trial to understand all what you can do and how to integrate that into your work process.
Yes, Antoine, the trial is there on the product page. So just go and find Meshroom VR, and you can have it for 15 days and play with it. There's no turning back. I'm just warning you. You're going to love it.
Yeah, and this trial, basically, even if you don't have a VR capable PC at the moment, all the things that I've been showing to you, being the import, the material editor, you can do that on your own PC. The idea being that then you can understand first if your files are compatible, and two, if you like the powerfulness of the editor that we have provided, and if you like it, basically, you can then purchase adequate hardware and helmets to be able to use the full capability of VR. We are coming to the market in few weeks with a Pro package, and this Pro package will include multi-user capability, where you will be able to connect locally or remotely anywhere in the world and be multiple users in the same environment. And this is now being finalized by our R&D department and will soon go live. So we'll keep you posted as soon as this is available. All right. And I think I probably, Barbara, covered all the things that I had in mind.
Yes, we have a few questions actually.
Sure.
So what is the maximum poly count the software can handle?
That's a good question. It actually will, of course, depend on the PC that you will be using, but I would say to be on the safe side, 6 million polygons, triangles, is actually on the PC that I have here, which is a PC with the GeForce 1070, is very smooth.
Perfect.
After
and also,
that, it will depend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the reflection pre-baked?
No, they are not. Everything is real time.
Okay.
Everything is absolutely real time. What you see here is just a CAD file, and everything is real time.
Okay, and so the object reflects from each other in real time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. There's a question, I don't know if it's serious or facetious. Can you walk around the product without teleporting?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It's a very good question.
Yeah.
That's why we have selected the HTC Vive as the favorite helmet. Of course, we're going to support more hardware as time goes. But the HTC Vive allows you to walk around and go down, go up, bend your head, and move around. This is absolutely essential. Otherwise, you cannot do product validation. And that's what makes the difference between this kind of software, where you can put large files, walk around, The only problem is usually, for instance, you saw the room with the dessert. It's larger than the room where I am now, so teleportation needs to be there still. The maximum walk distance that you can have, or we have experienced, is about a square room of a diagonal of 7 meters.
Okay. And which render engine is used, the proprietary or Unity?
We are using Unreal Engine. And that's why you get so good performances on this kind of rendering and real time.
Wonderful, great. I can attest. This is a great experience. You just need to try it. It's just full immersive, real time. You get the sense of the design and sizes is wonderful. And I'm going to leave a few minutes for a few questions if you have it. Otherwise, I will take the screen back to show you again where you can find Meshroom on the Novedge product page. And I recommend you really try it for yourself. Download the trial. It's there right now, 15 days, play around and give us some feedback. We have another question. Can I replace part from the CAD after importing a model?
So no, you cannot replace parts of the model, and that's why also we spend so much effort in making the import so fast. You see here, for instance, I am now importing a new file, and it took just a few seconds to get it imported with all the textures and everything directly from the CAD software. So no, we are not supporting the replacement yet on the parts. But the turnaround time to your CAD system is extremely fast, and that's what we wanted to make sure. It's also a question of efficiency, because actually we noticed that a lot of people are actually doing A/B version of their files, and then importing A, importing B takes just a few seconds, and it's much more efficient in their workflow than actually doing a parameterized element.
Antoine, any plans to add GITF support as an import format?
It is on the possible candidates. We are going to continue to add different CADS files, but we want to make sure that every file format that we import is actually very efficient in the way we are doing it. So we are not just putting as many import files as one, but really spending the time to make it very well.
And it was GLTFs.
Yes,
sorry.
GLTF,
And
absolutely.
how about Vectorworks and Mac?
So no, it's not supported by Mac today. It's something that we would love to have at some point. But today it is supported on PC, and the minimum hardware requirements are actually GeForce 1070, so that you will have a smooth experience on your graphic card. We are also having some really good tests on the Quadro P4000 and P5000.
And what about Vectorworks? So a CAD program or Vectorworks or similar, can it be imported?
Sorry, I did not understand. I did not understand the question.
Yeah, Vectorworks. So does it support vector
vector
files from
export.
Vectorworks? Yeah,
I don't know by heart. We would need to check the files that are being exported. But what is very easy to do is you go to your CAD software, you make an export and check if any of the mesh format that I mentioned are supported. And just for the record, FBX, 3D XML, STL, DAE, 3DS are the major ones.
Cool. And also our attendees are asking if you could share your contact information.
Of course, if I can. Basically, you can reach us at contact@meshroomvr.com.
Okay.
And we will be answering your questions if you have some more.
Easy enough. Okay. So I'll continue to wrap up my conclusions. And so I want to thank you all for joining us today, find out more about latest design promotions and software information on Facebook, Google Plus, and Twitter, and our Novedge handles. And coming up next week, ArredoCAD Designer, a 3D design software for interior design. And last but not least, to rewatch today's webinar or previous ones, you can come on our Novedge YouTube and Vimeo channels. Our webinar playlist has webinars for every software taste. Thanks again for joining us today. Thank you so much, Antoine, and looking forward to see Meshroom VR on the US market.
And thanks a lot for welcoming us. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to get a lot of comments and ideas of if this is going to be a game changer to how to use 3D in all parts of your companies.
Great. We can't wait. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.